Welcome to the Brevard County Commission meeting on this, the 37th day of the year. And for those of you that have a keen sense of useless information like I do, you may already know that on this very day, the very first board game of Monopoly was sold way back in 1935. So now you have some more useless information you can spout off to your friends about. Did I buy it? No, I wanted one for Christmas back in 35, but my parents wouldn't buy me one. And as for Florida history, the very first successful United States launch of a Titan intercontinental ballistic missile took place on this day at a place that was then called Cape Canaveral. And of course everybody remembers Alan Shepard teeing off on the moon. Well, that was on this day also, back in 1971. So now we'll move into our invocation.
It's our honor to have Pastor Bernard Wright here from the city of Titusville to lead us in prayer.
Our Father and our God, we've come tonight to say thank you. We thank you, God, for this gathering of this great, grand, and august body. We thank you, God, for the privilege of being able to come together as citizens of this nation and of this county and discuss the concerns of this place. We thank you, O God, for the freedom that we have to be able to gather and talk and not be afraid. Lord, we lift up your name tonight and we pray that everything that we do tonight be done decently and in order. We ask now that you would endue and endow these elected and appointed officials with the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom to conduct the business of this your county. But we also ask, oh God, that the citizens would depend upon and support these elected officials. And then, oh God, as they make the decisions that they make, that we might be able to go along with those decisions. Now, Lord, we bless your name tonight. We give you honor and we give you praise. It is in the mighty, the matchless, and the miraculous name of Jesus we pray. Let us all say amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first business for the meeting is the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the zoning meeting from December 1st, 2016, and from the regular meeting of January 10th, 2017?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. Anyone wish to vote no? Passes 5-0. Okay, now we'll move into resolutions. And our first resolution will be from Commissioner Pritchett.
Do we have Colonel Al Terrio here?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, would you come forward? Do I read the resolution first and let him comment?
Well, just tell him that he'll have a chance to comment after you read the resolution.
Okay, I'm going to read the resolution, and then if you have a comment, we would love to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am.
Whereas Wreaths Across America, a national nonprofit organization, has requested the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, to grant permission to Wreaths Across America to expand the annual wreath-laying ceremony to include the Veterans Cemetery at 1143 Day Street in Titusville. And whereas Wreaths Across America was founded in 2007 to continue and expand the annual wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery that began in 1992. And whereas Wreaths Across America's mission to remember, honor, and teach is carried out in part by coordinating wreath-laying ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery, as well as veteran cemeteries and other locations in all 50 states and beyond. And whereas Wreaths Across America has expanded to include more than 1,500 local fundraising groups in all 50 states, representing more than 1,000 participating locations. Whereas since 2008, Congress has issued a proclamation officially recognizing National Wreaths Across America Day each December. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida authorizes Wreaths Across America to include the Veterans Cemetery at 1143 Day Street in Titusville, Florida in the annual Wreaths Across America Day. honors all Wreath Across America project, and recognizes the service of veterans and members of all the armed forces and the sacrifices that veterans and members of armed forces and their families have made and continue to make for the United States, a great nation. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, on behalf of the 130 veterans that are laid to rest in Titusville, it's truly our honor to be able to present the Wreaths Across America program. It has been said that a veteran will die twice. First, when his heart stops or her heart stops. The second, when we no longer mention their name. Part of the Wreaths Across America program is to keep that name alive. As we place the wreath, we announce the name of the veteran that's buried there. December 16th, 2017 is Wreaths Across America Day. At noon, you're most welcome to join us in Titusville. We would be happy to have each and every one of you there. I have with me tonight some newsletters that were just issued today and to give to each of you. That way you can also look for it in your local community as well. It's up and down the county. You've probably heard it also in Scottsmore, and it is the same day, and they're much larger, but our veterans are just as worthy. And thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you, sir. Now we order and adopt in regular session the 7th day of February 2017. Do I have a motion to, you say that part, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's all good. John? Thank you, sir. Okay, it's my honor and pleasure to read the second resolution, which is a resolution of the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, in recognition of Black History Month 2017, a crisis in black education. Whereas the Brevard County Commission acknowledges that the crisis in black education first began in the days of slavery, when it was unlawful for slaves to learn to read and write. Whether by law, policies, or practices, racially separated schools remained the norm in America from the late 19th century well into our own time. The touted benefits of education remain elusive to many blacks of all ages, yet African American history is rich in centuries-old efforts of resistance to this crisis, such as the slaves' surreptitious endeavors to learn, the rise of black colleges and universities after the Civil War, the freedom schools of the 60s, local community-based academic and mentor programs that inspire a love of learning and a thirst for achievement. Whereas the Brevard County Commission recognizes the importance of addressing the crisis in black education as one of the most important goals in America's past, present, and future. Whereas the Brevard County Commission would like to dedicate this year's resolution to Mr. Walter Butler, a leader and pioneer in the Sharps community here in Brevard County. Mr. Butler served on the Community Action Agency Board, and he has been a great asset to the community development team as the president of the Sharps Civic League. He pursued the construction of the Sharps Community Center, now appropriately named the Walter Butler Community Center, which provides youth and adult recreation of all types for a diverse area population. Mr. Butler passed away on February 2nd, 2017, and we honor him and his family for his efforts to improve the quality of life for our residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize the month of February 2017 as Black History Month. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith and second by Commissioner Barfield. Anyone wish to vote no? Passes 5-0. And you have the microphone, sir.
On behalf of Dr. Desmond Blackburn, Brevard County Public School Superintendent, and the 9,000-plus employees at the district, I humbly accept this resolution on the behalf of the Brevard County Public Schools. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to say? The mic is open.
Good evening. I'm Mrs. Walter Butler, and I'd just like to say thank you very much. And on behalf of my husband, Walter Butler, I will accept this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
You gonna sit? This is...
Face that wall.
Get up front. Get right there.
I don't want to hide anybody. Can you see the camera? And thank you all for being here. Okay, now we'll move into the consent agenda. Does anyone have any of these items they wish to pull?
Yes, sir.
Which one would that be?
Consent agenda 2D5, the Zoning Board of Adjustments, Citizen Advisory Board.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
2D1, please.
2D1. Anyone else? Okay, I'll accept the motion to approve the other items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barfield to accept the entire consent agenda, except those items pulled. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. Anyone wish to vote no? Passes 5-0. Okay. Mr. Tobias?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is about a budget change request for Parks and Rec to the tune of $180,000. Some questions that I got answered, and yet the answers brought a little concern. I wanted to bring this to light. $64,000 for a new park in a facility that we currently have a park, one that is relatively new, that serves children ages 5 to 12. This would add another group of playground equipment for 2 to 4-year-olds. My understanding that the reason for this was because it's in an area is low income, but it's my belief that low income is solved with good education, not with good parks. There's a park less than a mile and a half away and due diligence where kids could seek recreational activities. More concerning than the $64,000 for the additional park is more than $10,000 of additional funding for, all I can imagine is better trucks and better vans. Money has been already allocated, and this would increase that allocation more than $10,000 for trucks. My question would be what that $10,700 or $10,800 purchases are: leather seats, 4x4s, 250s instead of 150s. It's just very concerning that instead of using these resources potentially for Balance Forward, we are endeavoring to spend each and every one of those pennies. So for that reason, I could not support this budget change and had to ask for it to be pulled off of the consent agenda.
Do we have anyone on staff that would like to address this?
The vehicles, we buy those off of contract, so it's not that there were changes made to the amenities on the vehicles. They're purchased off a contract. So this is typically if a contract changes, they put the estimate together, a new contract could be negotiated and then could result in a change. You want to speak to the Woody Simpson playground?
The playground unit is standard prices anywhere from for 2 to 4 year olds, and then the 5 to 12 year olds run from anywhere from $25,000 to $45,000 depending on the elements that are purchased with it. This also has a shade structure associated with it, and the location is at the Woody Simpson Park Community Center fields, and they are potentially right now not with a playground, so we are initiating that process for them, or for the park system at Woody Simpson.
We have Commissioner Tobias, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I don't mean that we're, misallocating the funds if I was insinuating that. I believe we're prioritizing the funds. So I believe that $64,000 would be better used paving roads, and before this $180,000, we had 4 trucks allocated. So since this isn't allocating a 5th truck, my only understanding is the trucks that we're getting off of the state allocation are getting better. You know, there's not just one truck that we're getting. Now we have more funds to get better trucks. So it was an issue there, and it magically ended up the exact amount of the $180,000. If you add it up, those numbers were made to fit that $180,000, and that's why I highly doubt it was something off a state contract. So I think that probably is a little bit of a fallacy. But again, I don't think that these are going in nefarious ways. I just think that the money could be allocated better to our transportation infrastructure, and again, that's why I can't support this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
These are referendum dollars, and so the board doesn't have an ability to move those from any other fund, with the exception of Parks and Recreational Capital Funds. And so as I understand it, these are being reallocated from a CIP project that was completed or is no longer a priority.
Is no longer on the priorities.
So they're simply reallocating the referendum dollars, and if you will recall, that's a special tax voted upon by the voters, specifically and dedicated to parks and recreational capital and operating needs there. So you couldn't move them to road projects if you desired. Also, the only way that we purchase vans and vehicles is most normally off of the state contract. So these are dollars that are going towards vehicles that are actually, we just simply piggyback the state contract. And I think they, in some respects, do back into the numbers that they're removing from one project and allocating to the various needs across the other projects there. And so I would not deny that there's a project that has 180 dedicated to it. They've determined that that's no longer of the utmost priority, and they've simply taken those dollars and allocated them across various projects. Again, the primary point is that these are referendum dollars that can't be used for any other expenditures except for the parks capital expenditures in the central parks budget.
Thank you for that explanation, and that's why I was very clear that I said that these resources could go to balance forward. Parks and Rec receives dollars, it is my understanding, out of the general revenue that we have to spend. If this is resources that they can use in the future, then that may be less resources that they would need out of the pot of money that we otherwise would use for transportation. That was my understanding, and if that was not clear when I spoke, I apologize.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Barfield.
Mr. Whitten, are these other items that they're going to put the money to, are they on the CIP?
No, they are dollars that were moved from the Jefferson CIP, Jefferson Middle School, lights.
But the other items are not on the CIP?
They're all unfunded.
Okay.
So the difference is CIPs CIP is for larger capital expenditures. These may be capital outlay needs as opposed to capital improvement projects there. So, but the AC unit obviously is an operational capital need there, and so obviously that's something that it would be have a higher priority than the lighting. Generally, these are either capital outlay items or items that are in the CIP, and sometimes those can be different sets of items.
Mr. Whitten, would you kindly explain to the audience what a CIP is?
CIP is a capital improvement program or a capital improvement project. And so, for instance, the Jefferson Lighting CIP was a part of a listing of projects or large equipment that the board has previously approved and budgeted for either in the current fiscal year or in some outlined fiscal year.
Thank you, sir. Not seeing any other lights. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. This by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. Commissioner Tabaya being the nay vote. Commissioner Pritchett, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. On this candidate for this board, I've received some emails which caused me some concern. So I wanted to poll it, and I'm guessing by a couple of pieces of paper handed out that you guys are aware of it also. So I'm just going to move.
Do you want to identify this person, because there were numerous people that were nominated in that section?
Yes, sir. It's for the Citizens Advisory Board in District 3.
Okay, and the particular individual that you object to?
Mr. Charbonneau.
Okay.
And I was just going to vote to deny.
Okay, so before we go there, so if you want to pull him only,
Yes, sir.
then we need a motion first to approve all the others. So you want to make that motion?
Make a motion to approve all the others.
Okay. We have a motion to approve all candidates.
Second.
By Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? They pass 5-0. Okay, now on the particular candidate of candidacy of Mr. Charbonneau, you want to go into any depth on your objection?
I'd really rather not, just because I would rather not, I would just rather disapprove. You guys have got the information, correct?
Okay, so you're going to make a motion to,
There's just been complications on other boards, and I think there was situations and problems. So I just feel this is an important board, and it might not be a good fit
so your motion is exactly what?
to not approve.
To not approve Mr. Barfield on this board?
Excuse me?
Mr. Charbonneau. I knew what I was saying. I was just trying to make light.
Yes, Mr. Charbonneau.
Mr. Charbonneau, okay.
Yes, sir.
You wish to deny his being appointed to this board?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett and a second by Commissioner Barfield to restrict Mr. Charbonneau from this board. All those in favor say aye.
I think
Aye.
we should offer to have discussion, please.
Okay, well, yes, we can have absolutely.
I put the light on.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to hear from Commissioner Tobias, because it was his appointment, and I think that at the very least, we should probably hear either more detail, because I get a little nervous denying somebody a board appointment without the opportunity to at least, because if ideologically, if four of us saw things differently than one, we could just disapprove of somebody because of their political beliefs. If we didn't like personalities or somebody was difficult, I'm not saying that this is the case, of course, but I just think that this puts us down a path that we may not want to go on. Because this isn't my appointment, and this isn't Commissioner Pritchett's appointment or Commissioner Barfield's appointment. We should probably hear from Commissioner Tobias. Is that okay?
Chair, sure. Chair recognizes Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Charbonneau has a distinguished career in law enforcement and the private sector, holding many certificates proffered by the state of Florida. I believe he would be an asset to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and I was proud to nominate him. I understand that he, like many of us, are a little sharp around the edges, and I believe that dissent many times offers a good viewpoint when it comes to these type of citizen review boards. So I went with people that I believe strongly have a strong work ethic and bring personal skills and life experiences, and I believe Mr. Charbonneau is the type of gentleman that will provide that outlook onto this board, and I was proud to nominate him, and I believe he will do a good job.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, the Zoning Board of Adjustment's a very, very important board. And Mr. Charbonneau was on the Planning and Zoning Board and did not perform well there at all. And in fact, it was tough for him to stay awake in meetings. It's just very important because there's a lot at stake there. That's one thing, but there's another issue, and it's based on an ordinance, 76-20, where it says that the Board of Adjustment shall consist of one member from each county commissioner's district. Already District 5 with Dale Young, District 2, Wayne Snyder, and the previous one was District 3, and Woolley, another one's District 1. So the issue is you have to have one from each district, and that will put us where we don't have one. We have another one in District 4. Mr. Charbonneau lives in District 4, so that gives us two in District 4 and not one from District 3. And that's according to the ordinance. So, that's a real issue right here. So,
Okay, so that takes personalities out of it, takes options and opinions out of it. If the ordinance requires us to have one from each district, then we need one from District 3.
Yeah. Can we please get an opinion from the
Sure.
attorney on that, whether or not
Mr.
the
Knox, would you
person
like
has to
to-
live there, or a recommendation from...
I'm going to need a couple of minutes to look it up.
That's fine. Take all the time you need. I don't tap dance, so I can't help you. No entertainment.
please don't.
I've got a thing that we're talking about, I'm sitting right here.
No, sir.
No, I can't speak. Yes, or, that's a yes or no.
That's a no.
You know, just from each county commissioner's district. They have to live there. They have to be there. So.
Should let him speak.
That's it. So.
Mr. Charbonneau, would you like to approach the microphone, please?
Yes. I can speak now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just your name and your address, please.
Richard Charbonneau, actually in the county of Brevard, but on the line of Satellite Beach. Two things, Mr. Pritchard. We don't even know each other.
No, sir.
I'm not on any other board. You said that I was on a board, and there's a conflict of me being on another board.
No, sir.
That's a non-truth.
That's not what I said, sir.
Fine, play it back, and let's hear what you said again.
I had gotten information on another board you served on from people that had frustrations with the service. So,
Just let him speak.
yes, sir.
Okay, and then you said that I fell asleep while I was on the board. That's not true at all. Matter of fact, you weren't at any one of those meetings whatsoever at all. So you're only operating by assumption or what somebody told you, and you know what happens to people with assumptions. That's not true. Okay, and then also, I only served as the alternate to Kurt, so I wasn't even really on the board because, as the alternate, I only voted if John Stone wasn't there. And John Stone was probably there 90% of the time. So whether I came or whether I didn't come, or whether I fell asleep or didn't fall asleep, or whether I scratched my rear end, it didn't make any difference. Because John Stone was there, and I didn't do anything. So me not performing, John Stone would have to not be there for me to not perform. That makes no sense whatsoever at all. This is a setup, and you know it. Okay, and while I'm here, we have two conservatives on the bookends, and then we have one person that's on speed dial with Robin Fisher, the other person that's on speed
Yes.
dial with EDC,
Mr.
and the other
Charbonneau,
person
will you
that's a
have
swing
seat,
vote.
Please, you're out of order.
I'm the commissioner from the
Thank
district,
you.
so I get to make the decision.
Well, you know what? It's time somebody said it.
Choose anyone in Brevard County. Why don't you go, Brent?
Okay, the ordinance reads, the member must be from the district. So if you've got two from the same district, one of them couldn't be on the board.
Okay, so, Mr. Tobias, you wish to pull the...
I do, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The nomination has been pulled. Okay, we're moving into public comments. Sanjay Patel?
Hi there. I have a few handouts. You want me to give them to you now?
We'll just pass them down.
So my name is Sanjay Patel. I live at 315 Jackson Ave in Satellite Beach. I'm the newly elected state committee man for the Brevard Democratic Party, but I'm here speaking today as a concerned citizen of the state of Florida and of Brevard County. I am deeply concerned about the potential for damage to our homes, our health, and our environment due to the operation of a LNG export facility on our coast and the transport of LNG by rail through Brevard County. While the project is on hold pending the approval of a variance due to its dangerous proximity to critical infrastructure, I want to ensure that the Commission is well aware of the many environmental, health, and safety concerns associated with this project. According to Reuters, in 2014, an explosion at a similar facility in Plymouth, Washington exploded, injuring 5 workers, forced hundreds to evacuate their homes within 2 miles of the facility, and over 14.3 million cubic feet of gas spewed from the storage tank, making residents and emergency responders sick. Over 100 emergency workers were required in the response. Just this week, according to the Los Angeles Daily News, Los Angeles Dr. Jeffrey Nordella reported that a pattern of health symptoms has emerged among the almost 50 patients he's followed since last year's Aliso Canyon natural gas leak in California. The doctor said he's seeing abnormal pulmonary functions among some of those patients and low red blood cell counts in others. He's reviewed the files of residents whose family members died and said he's seen a rare case of anemia that can be connected to toxic exposure. In addition to the danger of the facility itself is the danger of transporting liquefied natural gas by rail through Brevard County. According to Channel 9 investigative reporter Christopher Heath, the Martin County Fire Department issued a report that showed a possible blast radius would impact 1,200 residents. The report showed that such an accident would exceed local response capabilities. Transport of LNG by rail is still experimental and has only just begun in one other state, which is Alaska, where already a lawsuit is underway which claims that the government operated in secrecy and was not transparent in its approval of the nation's first experimental rail shipments of liquefied natural gas. Because of the danger of an explosion like the one in Washington, because of health risks that are just now being uncovered from methane leaks like the ones in Aliso Canyon, because of the anticipated blast radius, and our limited ability to respond to such a crisis, I hope the County Commission will fully respond to our request for information and present a thorough risk analysis to our community before allowing this project to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Meredith. Welcome. Your name and address, please.
I'm Gail Meredith, 411 Grant Avenue, Satellite Beach. Good evening, Commissioners. I, too, am speaking on behalf of the LNG facility, my concerns about it. I think it's very dangerous, and I think it hasn't received the scrutiny and environmental impact study that it should. I think the Commission should look into it more deeply before going forward with it. I'm supporting what Sanjay Patel said and also what Mel Martin is going to say, that the long-term effects of having such a dangerous facility in our county should be carefully evaluated before proceeding. I'd also like to know what the status of it actually is.
Thank you. John Sathoff.
My name is John Sathoff, and I'm a resident of Melbourne, constituent of...
Your address, please. Your address.
1209 East New Haven Avenue.
Thank you.
And constituent of District 3. All right? And good evening. First of all, thanks for allowing time in this meeting to bring the facts about LNG transport out into the open, where the citizens of Brevard can see them. It's not been something that's been flying above the radar up to this point. I'll leave it to my friends in the room to present their questions and concerns about the considerable risks to moving LNG through Brevard's residential communities. But LNG also creates a significant problem connected with Florida's ecology, its water supply, and its public health. So we're speaking to you out of a growing concern that the natural gas for LNG processing and export would be moving at very high pressures through the Sable Trail pipeline, That project is under construction as we speak. The pipeline route passes through most of the vulnerable parts of the state and the most exposed part of the Florida aquifer. We believe the Port Canaveral LNG terminal and others that are on the drawing board are driving the economic justification of the STP project, which will lock Florida into a future of transporting and processing fracked natural gas while potentially polluting its water supply. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the EPA, and the Army Corps of Engineers have all had the opportunity to evaluate the environmental impact of STP, and each of them has dropped the ball. So, why is this a concern? Two reasons. First, because of the steady increase in carbon dioxide emissions from burning natural gas. Liquid natural gas is sent to other countries where it is burned in gas-fired power plants, and it makes little difference in the world where the gas is burned. All of the greenhouse gas emissions mix into the atmosphere and trap heat. So clean burning natural gas is energy company propaganda. It's a red herring. And when it comes to climate effects, gas is in fact no better than coal. Although coal's carbon intensity is 82% higher than gas, the rapid decline of coal coupled with the exponential increase in cheap gas for electricity generation means that emissions from natural gas now exceed those from coal for the first time since 1972. And further,
Your time is up, please, sir.
Okay. Appreciate your time. We ask you to keep the big picture in mind, not just the danger of transporting, but the upstream effects.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Stacy Patel.
Good evening. My name's Stacy Patel, and I am the newly elected chair of the Brevard Democratic Party, but tonight I'm just speaking as a concerned citizen. I live at 315 Jackson Avenue in Satellite Beach. And in addition to the many potential risks to our community, we learned a lot about natural gas, about the impact of this project since this facility was conceived. First of all, we've learned that natural gas is not necessarily the clean fuel we once supposed. According to The Nation, in March of 2016, Harvard researchers used satellite data and ground observations to conclude that the nation as a whole is leaking methane in massive quantities. The data showed that U.S. methane emissions increased by more than 30%, accounting for 30 to 60% of an enormous spike in methane in the entire planet's atmosphere. This data suggests that our new natural gas infrastructure has been bleeding methane into the atmosphere in record quantities. This unburned methane is much, much more efficient at trapping heat than carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is driving the great warming of the planet, but CO2 isn't doing it alone. It's time to take methane seriously as well. Secondly, this project is an offshoot of the Sabal Trail pipeline, a project which, prior to political maneuvering, was originally opposed by the EPA. According to Politico, the EPA said in a letter to FERC that it had very significant concerns that the proposed route posed a threat to the Florida aquifer, the drinking water supply for much of the region. The agency also raised concerns about the pipeline's impact on wetlands, conservation lands, and minority communities in the region. Should our county really support projects that threaten Florida's natural resources, especially given that we support the environment so much here? In addition, at a time when our own legislature is considering a statewide fracking ban proposed by Republicans in both the Senate and the House, this pipeline will carry fracked gas from the backyards of our fellow Americans to Florida for export. Can we not see the hypocrisy in planning to profit locally from harmful environmental practices we wouldn't allow in our own backyards? Finally, it's becoming more clear that green jobs offer significantly greater opportunity than continued investments in fossil fuel infrastructure. Just today, Time magazine reported that the number of jobs in the U.S. solar industry grew by 25% last year. More than 260,000 people now work in the solar industry, a 17-fold increase since 2010. The rapid growth is largely due to rapid technological advances that have made solar cost competitive with natural gas in many places. Also reported last month was the fact that trains in the Netherlands now run entirely on
Here,
wind
30
industry.
seconds.
We are the county that brought a man to the moon. With Elon Musk developing SpaceX in Brevard and Solar City in our backyard, couldn't we also be the county that will build the future of America's energy infrastructure? Let's not endanger our citizens, our economy, or our environment by continuing our sad legacy of dependence on fossil fuels.
Thank you. Charles Tovey.
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over, and yay. I did provide this information once before, and I'm going to do it again. I did provide 2 copies, before and after, and it was looking for treasure in the lagoon. Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome.
I have a same problem. Try and do my legal things, try and get my medical things. I can't have anything on my property. Anyways, I went to try and attend to some legal things yesterday, and lo and behold, I come home, somebody been in my property, been in one of my vehicles, and wrote me a threatening note. As well as several weeks ago, before they took my cab, they launched a Heineken bottle at one of my trucks. This has been going on for over a decade. The same with the pictures and photographs I gave you. For years and years and years I did that, and I have a bag full of videos that I didn't have time to get, and I hate to leave my house. I hate to come up here every time I leave, and why can't I have my rights? I have to earn my rights, somebody has to give me my rights, but everybody else can leave their house and in safe and security. But me, no, I have to lose everything I have. And as I told you expressed the last meeting, saving the lagoon, unfortunately cost me a lot, but it was worth it. And I have the photographs, the videos, and it's all there. And why did I do from Pineda to Augelli? Because it's one of the closest points of the lagoon. And I pray about things, and that's where I was led. Even though I went to Titusville all the way to Grant, and they had the boom barriers and clogged up everything, I concentrated on the most infected port, just like I explained about the heart surgery. I cleaned from Pineda to Augelli. You can tell by the white sands, and I will produce the videos, and still trying to get my... You're not going to take it away from me, and you have to, whoever is responsible has to murder me. And I also wanted to point out that you can see the difference in the water and the clarity and the other marine animals, and the whole environment comes back. But there's a man that took my boat, and I gave one extra copy of something, and it has 2 boats on there. One on the bottom is the boat that they took, which was mine, and it was inadvertently $25,000. You have a lien against me for inadvertently taking my boat. And the boat that's on the top right-hand corner of the picture, the second page without my face in it, that's the boat that they left behind to take my boat. And the man who did it, he's in charge of cleaning up all the muck in the lagoon. The same with natural resources, code enforcement. No, I have a whole list, Sheriff Ivey, and they come to threaten me while people trespass and destroy my property. And I'll be here, God willing, next time, and a time after, and a time after. And I wanted to clear some of the things off, defraggle my mind a little bit, but there are some other things that we seem to have a modus operandum, or used to, and that was don't do nothing until it gets too late. And then we'll just tax them, and we'll create all these boards and everything. But no, as Barney Fife says, nip it in the bud. You can save millions, and you get twice the savings. Instead of exerting the energy and putting it out, plus the saving, it's a double. Yay. I'm glad that people are open-minded listening to me. I realize I have 30 seconds left. And I also wanted to make a comment about religion. There was a commissioner that said, oh, you either have religion or you don't have religion. Well, having no religion is a religion. And I'm going to cut it short and have my boats I showed you about. I save my time because I don't want to be cut off in the middle of a topic or anything. I appreciate your patience, and What am I going to do at my house? I hate leaving, I hate coming home. And every time, and the people laugh and just help themselves to my life and my property, and nobody does nothing, but the sheriff comes by. I chased him down the road today, and what happened? Kept on going.
Pam LaSalle.
Time first. When I spoke to a prior board, they said all you have to give is your name and your town, that you don't have to give your whole address. And I really don't think that should be taken out of my time. I'm trying to clarify what the rules are.
Mr. Knox, would you like to weigh in on that subject?
I don't think you have to force anybody to give their address.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Pamela Sal Vieira. Commissioner Smith, at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, you had some remarks that I would like to quote. The public, and not all, theirs, I will tell you, it's obvious since I've been in this position. I know there's paranoid people. There's a bogeyman behind every tree and around every corner. I mean, we've got people up here that say things that will make your head explode, like we're all going to die from some foreign disease that we're going to get from a cat. Even though every vet and every doctor, even medical examiner I spoke to in the county said that wasn't true, but that person was convinced they were going to die unless we did something, end quote. Since I'm the only person, since you took office, to speak on the health hazard from free-roaming cats, I think most people believe that you were talking about my comments on toxoplasmosis. Toxoplasma gondii, the cause of toxoplasmosis, is a microscopic single-cell parasite. Cats are the definitive host for this parasite, and infected cats excrete the parasite in their feces. It is environmentally resistant and can be spread by any number of vectors. During an infection, a single cat can expel 500 million oocysts, and a single oocyst can infect a secondary host such as a human. It is incurable. Interestingly, you mentioned make your head explode. An infant congenitally infected can endure hydrocephalus, which is a swelling of the brain, and since their skulls are soft, their heads can expand in an extreme and abnormal way. The county manager would not allow me to show the audience pictures of hydrocephalus that are published on Wikipedia. This county allows feral cat colonies and places the public at risk. I don't know what vets or doctors you have talked to, but I do know there are many in those professions who disagree with the position you state and believe it to be a significant senseless health risk. The 3 new board members are not familiar with all the information I have sent the 2 board members, Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Barfield. I will be sending you the information on this disease and happy to discuss it with any of you. Does anyone have any questions?
You have 30 seconds.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
John LaSalle. So noted. Melissa Martin.
Good evening, Melissa Martin from COCO. I may have stirred up some things by asking a few questions. I just wanted to give you the framework of why I was curious. I am a judge advocate, retired Marine, who was the legal planner for multiple crisis operations planning development working groups out the yin-yang. I'm familiar with what is necessary in a concerted effort of preparing for the worst and making sure that we have the assets and the training necessary to respond effectively to minimize injury and death and health issues. So that said, when I was sitting at the Citizens Academy on Friday, lovely program, by the way, excellent, I noticed that there was not, to the standard of my expectations, sufficient understanding and notice to the public intergovernmental discussions and things like that regarding not only the LNG manufacturing plant coming, but also the intent to transport it out of the port and down the rails throughout Brevard, 72 miles or whatnot, whatever's Titusville down. So that was concerning because, for obvious reasons, I don't think I should, state the obvious, but people's lives are at risk. They should know about it, and so they can either speak up about it. I'm not sure if it's an issue that's too far down the road for us to have an opinion, but I don't remember us as a public entity being asked if it was to our benefit. I understand it was a Titusville issue and it has remained a Titusville issue regarding the plant, but no such discussions have been created regarding the use of the all aboard Florida rails for LNG freight. And I understand, and the more I question, the more I research, the more I'm like, wow, because this is an experimental issue. No place else in the nation except for Alaska, and I think Sanjay mentioned it, do they transport LNG by rail. And LNG is just a frozen state of methane gas. And Alaska, I'm not sure if you know, but Alaska's climate's a little different than Florida's. So I just don't know. My questions are overwhelming, and so I'm looking to you as a government body to help answer these questions on behalf of
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. On behalf of the citizens. So in the end, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure if you need me to read in my email that I sent you earlier, but it provides all the main questions that I have for the board. And in the end, I'm just really hoping to start the conversation in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Charbonneau.
I think I was speaking about the CRAs and
You filled out a card for number 3, which is public comments. You want to speak with the CRAs?
on the CRA and the ethics. Is the ethics not an item?
I don't recall. Okay, we can hold you off. Abby Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Abby Johnson. I'm with the St. Johns River Water Management District. I'm simply here to introduce myself this evening. I'm the new Intergovernmental Coordinator for Brevard County, and I'm here to be of service and accessible. I just wanted to say hello. I'm sure our paths will cross again, but thank you for having me this evening. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 5, unfinished business.
Mr. Chairman, there's a agenda item 4A, public hearing, which you need to...
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I wrote it in. It was a late add-on. Okay, we do. We have a resolution approving... Do you want to introduce it?
This is a TEFRA hearing on Florida Development Finance Corporation educational facilities bonds in connection with the Sculptor Charter School.
Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve item 4A.
Mr. Chairman, are there any cards on this one that you...
No. Well, wait a minute. I have 5A, 5B, 6E. No. No cards. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett to approve this TEFRA public hearing resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Isnardi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, now we're moving on to unfinished business, 5A.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you a proposed settlement agreement regarding the Deseret Ranch property involving solid waste. Mr. David D. is here to make a presentation if you need it.
Well, we have a card on this also. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Commissioners, my name is David D. I'm an environmental law attorney from Tallahassee. I've represented many of the cities and counties throughout the state on solid waste issues over the last 38 years. I've had the good fortune to represent Brevard County for the last 25 years, off and on when the county needed assistance. What I'd like to do is provide an overview of a proposed settlement agreement that has been negotiated between the county, Deseret Ranches, and Deer Park. That settlement agreement is in your agenda package. Also included in your agenda package is a letter that I sent to the county attorney dated January 23 of this year. It provides additional details about the settlement agreement, and it explains why I recommend approval of the settlement agreement by the board. Now, these issues were discussed at length during the executive session that you had 2 weeks ago on January 24th. Nonetheless, I'd like to highlight some of the key issues for the benefit of the public because they were not able to participate in that discussion. The issues in this case really began in 1991 when the county filed a lawsuit against Deseret Ranches in eminent domain so that the county could obtain property for new solid waste management facilities that the county wished to build. That lawsuit resulted in a settlement agreement in 1991 and the purchase of 2,980 acres from Deseret Ranch. The county moved forward in fits and starts in the following years. In 2010, it filed applications with the Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, for the solid waste permits needed to build the first cell of a Class 3 landfill on the site. Deseret challenged that decision, but ultimately entered into a settlement agreement, and the following year, 2011, pursuant to that settlement agreement, the solid waste permits were issued. In 2016, DEP gave notice of its intent to issue the environmental resource permits for certain dredging and filling activities on the site and the construction of certain stormwater management systems on the site to allow the county to go forward with the development of the project. That decision was also challenged by Deseret and Deer Park Ranch. The challenge was referred over to the Division of Administrative Hearings, and it's now scheduled for a formal administrative hearing, which is scheduled to begin on May 2 of this year. That proceeding is expected to take approximately 2 weeks to complete. It'll be like a trial in circuit court. There'll be a judge, no jury, and formal procedures will be implemented for the presentation of evidence and the cross-examination of witnesses. Now, last year in the spring, Deseret submitted a proposal to this board with a suggestion for how their cases could be settled. And the suggestion was based on the concept that the county would agree that it would not build a Class 1 landfill on its property. That is to say, the county would not build a landfill that would receive garbage on that property. In addition, Deseret wanted to purchase back approximately 2,250 acres of the site out of the 2,980 that the county previously purchased. The board held a workshop in May of last year and concluded that it would not accept the proposal from Deseret. The board at that time said that it wanted to keep all options open, and that included the possibility of developing a Class 1 landfill for garbage on the site in the future. Following the board's workshop, I tried to consider the concerns that had been expressed by the board as well as the concerns expressed by Deseret and Deer Park, and tried to think about concepts that might bring the parties together so we could resolve the dispute without further expense and litigation. I coordinated with county staff and consultants, came up with some ideas that I presented to Deseret, and over the last 4 to 5 months have worked with them and the county staff on the negotiation of a settlement agreement that appears to be acceptable to Deseret, Deer Park, and the county staff and myself. The biggest concerns that were addressed by the parties is that the county needs a new landfill to replace the Sarno Road landfill in Melbourne. That landfill receives construction and demolition debris, tires, furniture, mattresses, things that are not expected to pose a significant threat to human health or the environment. That type of landfill is designated by DEP as a Class 3 landfill. That's what the county needs, because based on its best estimates, in 4 to 6 years, the county's landfill at Sarno Road will be filled to its maximum design capacity. Desiree, for its part, is not so concerned about that type of a facility. They don't like it, they don't want it next door to them, but their primary concern is the disposal of garbage. They want the county to commit that it will postpone the disposal of Class 1 waste on the county's property. That is not an unreasonable idea, because the county has said publicly for some time that it doesn't need a new Class 1 landfill for garbage for at least 30 years. The current best estimates are that the central disposal facility in Cocoa will not be filled until about 2047. Again, approximately 30 years from now. So given those concerns by the parties, the settlement agreement is based on a few fundamental concepts. The first concept is the county will agree to delay the efforts to obtain permits for a Class 1 landfill for garbage until the year 2036 or later. And the county will amend its existing applications for that are pending for DEP for the environmental resource permits to eliminate those portions of the application that would provide for the construction of the infrastructure needed for the Class 1 landfills. That is to say, we're not going to fill certain wetlands for the Class 1 landfills. We're not going to fill certain areas that would be used for the stormwater management systems. In exchange for those concessions by the county, Desiree has made some concessions of its own. They have agreed that they will not oppose the issuance of the permits for the Class 3 landfill that the county needs. They have agreed that they will not object to the issuance of permits for recycling facilities if the county elects to build recycling facilities on the site in the future. They also have agreed they will not object to the issuance of the permits for a waste-to-energy facility if the county elects to pursue that technology. That is to say, a facility like the ones used in Tampa, Hillsborough County, Palm Beach County, Brevard County, where garbage is burned to reduce the organic matter to an inert ash. In addition, Desiree and Deer Park have agreed they will not object if the county wishes to use its property for the construction of a landfill that will receive the ash from a waste-to-energy facility. So these concessions would give the county what it needs, and they would also, on the flip side, give Desiree some assurance that they don't have to worry about a garbage landfill adjacent to them for the foreseeable future. Now, these concessions by the county would result in the elimination of 2 proposed Class 1 landfills on the site. I know you're not going to be able to read the information on that board, so I'm handing out, I've distributed copies of the site plan. What you'll see is in the northeast corner of the property, there's an area labeled Class 1 area, future cell, 376 acres. To the west of that is another irregularly shaped area that says future cell, 122 acres. Those are potential Class 1 landfills that are part of the county's current plan of development. Adjacent to those areas are stormwater management ponds that would receive the runoff from those landfills. They're labeled ponds 3, 5, and 6. The total area of development for those 2 landfills and the ponds is about 647 acres. Under the settlement agreement, the county would not fill the wetlands in that area. They would not develop those areas, and the habitat would remain as it is currently. As I mentioned, the agreement also provides that the county would not file an application for the Class 1 permit for the Class 1 landfill until the year 2036. That's approximately 10 or 11 years before the time when the county believes the central disposal facility will need to be replaced. That is to say, it should be sufficient time to allow the county to file an application, get a permit issued, commence and complete construction, and be commercially operational before central disposal facility needs to be replaced. If the central landfill starts to fill up faster than is currently estimated, the deadline for or the timetable for filing the application can be moved up as much as 5 years. So the county could conceivably file its application as early as the year 2031. That's 15 or 16 years earlier than we currently believe would be necessary for the replacement of the central disposal facility. Now, before the county files its applications, the proposed settlement agreement would require the county to conduct an evaluation of its solid waste management alternatives. Specifically, the county would have to look at those alternatives that are available to it, such as the use of a private landfill like the one over in Osceola County, or the use of waste energy technology, or whatever innovative technology might be available at that time. The idea that has been advanced by Desiree and Deer Park and others is that there must be a better way to handle solid waste than putting it in a traditional landfill. There must be a more cost-effective way to do that. The county studies to date have indicated that no, this is the best approach for the county at this time, but I'll readily confess, 20 years from now, the facts may be different. There may be better technologies, and hopefully that's the case. The idea in this instance is the settlement agreement would require the county to conduct a study of its alternatives so that the board would be in a position to be fully informed about those alternatives and make an intelligent decision about its future solid waste management options. Under the settlement agreement, Desiree would be allowed to continue to use the site as it currently does pursuant to a lease that the county entered into with Desiree in 2003. Under the settlement agreement, the site would be divided into two areas. The area in yellow on that exhibit is the area that would be used by Desiree. The county, at its expense, would install a fence along that buffer between the yellow area and the remainder of the site. Desiree would have about 1,083 acres to use. The county would have about 1,900 acres. And the idea is that way Desiree could conduct its cattle ranching operations without interference from the county, and similarly the county could conduct its operations without interference from cattle or cowboys. The settlement agreement also requires the county to remediate certain pre-existing contamination on the site. That contamination was caused presumably by Desiree as a result of historic operations. In particular, it's believed that Desiree treated its cattle to kill ticks. They sprayed the cattle with a solution that was laced with arsenic, and the arsenic now has contaminated an area that's called the cattle pens. It's a relatively small area. It's been previously evaluated, at least in part, by the county's consultants. There are arguments that could be made as to who has legal responsibility for the cleanup of that area. The Department of Environmental Protection has told us they believe the county has responsibility for the cleanup of that area because the county purchased the property, they're the owner, they have obligations under state law that Desiree does not. Accordingly, to avoid any future dispute, the settlement agreement provides that the county will pay for the cleanup of that area. The settlement agreement also provides, and I apologize for sounding like a frog, but I've been fighting a cold all week. The settlement agreement also provides for an extension of the 2003 lease with Desiree. That lease will expire in the year 2033. Under the settlement agreement, the lease can be extended in 5-year increments until the settlement agreement expires, which is the year 2076. So they could be renewed for up to 60 years from now. Thank you. term of the lease obviously is very lengthy, but it will come up for review every 5 years. And at those 5-year increments, the commission, as well as Desiree, will have the ability to terminate the lease at that time if they choose to do so. So every 5 years, you'll have the ability to say, no, we don't want to continue with the lease agreement. I mentioned that the lease potentially could extend until the year 2076. That is admittedly a very lengthy term, but the county's plans for the development of the site anticipate that the site will be used for 60 years or more. And for that reason, we want binding commitments both from Desiree and Deer Park as well as from the county about how the parties will behave for a very long time going into the future. The settlement agreement provides that if the county sells or conveys any part of the property, that sale or conveyance would have to be done in accordance with state law and county ordinances. Desiree, as the former property owner, believes that it ought to have some special consideration in certain instances. So if the county were to sell or convey the property to some third party, in certain instances, under the settlement agreement, the county would need to issue a request for proposals rather than just putting the property out under a bid or an auction. In a bid or an auction, the county commission could only consider the price that was offered for the property. Under an RFP, the county commission can set the criteria to consider other things. If the commission elects to weight price as 99.9%, that's the county's option, but it would have the ability to consider other factors such as the use of adjacent property, for example, and whether it'd be more advantageous to have Desiree owning or operating the property than some third party. In any event, the RFP process is used routinely under state law and under the county's ordinances. It's a fair, competitive, and transparent process, and it seems reasonable in this circumstance. I guess it should be emphasized that the county has kept all of its options open under this settlement agreement. It can pursue a Class 1 landfill in the future if it elects to do so. By the same token, if the county elects to take that action, Desiree reserves all of its rights to challenge the county's activities and attempt to pursue a Class 1 landfill. The primary benefits of the settlement agreement is that it reduces the risk of the pending litigation with Desiree and Deer Park. It eliminates that risk and thus should make it easier for the county to obtain the permits for the Class 3 landfill. It's very difficult to predict what might happen in any litigation or what might happen in the permitting process for that matter. So it's impossible for me or anybody else to give you a firm estimate about costs or the time that would be involved in the permitting or the money that you might save by entering into this settlement agreement. Based on my 38 years of practice and having handled many administrative hearings, it's my belief that the county will spend less money and less time if it accepts the settlement agreement. The pending and threatened litigation with Desiree and Deer Park is currently proceeding under state law. When the county attempts to get its permit from the United States Army Corps of Engineers to fill the wetlands on the property, Desiree and Deer Park will also have the right to challenge the county under federal law. This settlement agreement would eliminate that litigation. If the county pursues litigation, decides to proceed as it currently is, it's my belief that the county could spend reasonably 3 to 5 years more fighting Desiree and Deer Park. In addition, the county could spend $1 million or more on engineering fees, consulting fees, and legal fees fighting Desiree and Deer Park. The risk is, in that litigation, the county has to win every case, every appeal, on every critical issue. If it loses any of them, you don't get to build the facility, or you have to go back and amend your application at least. Until you win all of those cases, you can't go forward with construction. That's a problem with regard to the Class 3 landfill that you need to replace Sarno. I guess from an environmental perspective, since many of the speakers here have been concerned about environmental issues, it's also worth noting that by eliminating the activities where the Class 1 landfill would be built and eliminating stormwater ponds in those areas, there's an additional 650 acres of the site that will not be developed for at least 20 years or more. So those are wetlands and habitat that will be available, and it'll be an environmental benefit. The primary disadvantages of the settlement agreement: there'll be new costs and certain delays associated with the plan of action that's set out in the settlement agreement. As I mentioned, we're going to have to revise the applications. We're going to have to go back to the agencies, go through the permitting process with regard to the revised applications. Nonetheless, I would hope that the reduction in environmental impacts would make this current proposal more attractive to the environmental agencies, and I'd like to believe that the permits could be issued even quicker, that is to say within 12 to 24 months after the settlement agreement is approved. There will also be new costs and delays associated with the permitting of the Class 1 landfill. Again, we're moving the current plan, or changing the current plan to develop the Class 1 landfill infrastructure. That means at some point in the future, you'll have to start that process again with new applications and new efforts. There are additional risks. We are eliminating the risk of litigation with Desiree and Deer Park, but there is the risk that some other third party could come in and challenge the county's permit applications. There's the risk of permit denials or delay with the agencies. They may not like the revised plans. There's the risk that there may be changes in law or changes in fact that prevent you from developing the site in the manner that you currently propose. For example, you may not be able to develop the areas that are currently proposed for the Class 1 landfill because of a change in law or because of threatened and endangered species that have moved into the area where the Class 1 landfills are to be located. Perhaps the biggest risk from my perspective is the concern that the central disposal facility will run out of capacity before the county has a new Class 1 landfill built and operational on the site. I believe that's unlikely, given the amount of time that we've built into the schedule, but it is possible. If that were to occur, the county would have to come up with an alternate plan for the disposal of its solid waste. For example, the county might decide that it would haul its Class 1 garbage to the private landfill over in Osceola County, or it might work out an interlocal agreement with Orange County, or take some other action, but it would have to do something to address that period of time when the site was not ready to receive the Class 1 waste. So given all these facts and given all these different considerations, I can promise you I've spent a considerable amount of time over the last few months trying to think of every scenario and trying to think of every bad thing that might happen under the settlement agreement. I'm completely confident that my imagination is not good enough to have considered everything or to have addressed every issue. But again, based on my experience, I believe this settlement agreement will allow you to move forward quicker, with less risk, and at less cost to obtain the permits for the Class 3 landfill. That will take care of your immediate need. In effect, this agreement postpones the tough decisions about the Class 1 landfill, and that seems appropriate under the circumstances because you don't need to make those decisions today. You don't need to make them for another 20 years or more. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Isnardi.
That was actually from the last item. I mean, I know we're going to have a discussion, but I wasn't sure if you wanted public comments first or if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate your patience.
David Wright.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, staff. Glad to be with you. My name is David Wright. I work for and stand here on behalf of Deseret Ranch. Actually live on the property as well. Deseret Ranch has been in operation since 1950, producing cattle, citrus, other agricultural commodities on about 40,000 acres of land in Brevard County. I come to you today to state our support for this landfill settlement agreement. As most of you are aware, the land, this property was taken from us over 25 years ago, and today Deseret Ranch and Deer Park Ranch are the only neighbors to the property and therefore remain the most affected parties. You know, I think it's safe to say that no one loves a landfill unless you're in the business. And so over the history of this proposed landfill, Deseret has opposed. You know, at significant cost to itself, has opposed the permitting process. We have, again, at our own cost, tried to identify alternatives that would be better environmentally or economically for Brevard County. And we have consistently offered to repurchase the property at current market value. You've probably heard that from us before. And we just, I guess to be frank about it, we never had sufficient political support from the county to get the county to change its course. The settlement agreement is rarely perfect. You know, if we're up to Deseret Ranch and Deer Park Ranch, we'd prefer that there were no landfill out there, Class 1 or Class 3 or otherwise. Again, that's property will be just over the fence line from all of our remaining property. But on the other hand, I'm also sure that the county would prefer, at least some in the county would prefer to just build the landfill facilities per the schedule and design and timelines and budget and everything else as the county would like to do it. But here we are settling our administrative challenge. You know, we do appreciate the county's willingness to bring some new ideas to the table, to work with us on the settlement agreement, to address some of our concerns, and to allow both us, and, you know, I guess from the county's point, the county as well, to forego the expense of the administrative proceeding. This settlement, again, as Mr. D highlighted, the settlement delays the development of the Class 1 facilities for some 20 years. It allows us to continue our agricultural activities that we've done for decades out there, and that was important to us. And another important factor, the county commits in the settlement agreement to do a good faith analysis of the alternatives that are out there at that time. You know, notwithstanding the settlement agreement that we've signed and are supporting here today, and actually as a complement to it, Deseret Ranch plans to continue to work with the county to identify any other options that are out there that would be better for, more protective of the environment, or just, you know, put it frankly, cheaper for the citizens of Brevard County. So we don't expect this to be necessarily the end of the road. We'll continue to work with you and identify options as they exist. You know, both the county and Deseret have a long history with this property and with this project. I think as a community, we all need to determine ultimately what is the best option, what are the best alternatives for future landfill facilities, if any, in Brevard County or in the region. Again, we do support the settlement agreement. It does not dispose of all of the issues, but it takes care of some of the things that were of major concern to us. I think importantly, it allows us some additional time to explore some other alternatives. And we hope to still have a few years before even the Class 3 facilities are built on the property. You know, as a longtime landowner in Brevard County, we always appreciate areas of agreement. We'd like to avoid conflict wherever possible and be in agreement with the county wherever we can be. So again, thank you to the county staff and others for working on the settlement agreement, addressing some of our concerns, and we hope to avoid further conflict in the future and work on those many areas where we do have shared interests. So, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
I have a question. I think, you know, in that very eloquent speech you just gave and in your, you know, support of the landfill Class 3, I don't want the message to get lost that in your ideal situation, you wouldn't be standing here having to settle for this agreement. Is that correct?
I think that's safe to say. Yes,
okay, thanks.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure of the board.
Is that all the public comments we have?
That's it. Commissioner Zanardi, you have the floor.
And without going into detail, you guys remember during the executive session, I was pretty vocal on this issue. You know, the key here and the thing that gets lost in the discussion so often is that we took this property. And and I know you've probably all been out there, and that to me is the saddest thing, because 25 years ago, we decided it was an emergent situation where we had to take this property by eminent domain for a landfill. Now, obviously, they're not willing participants in this. They've fought the county every step of the way. You know, doing whatever they could to preserve that land. There's tens of thousands of acres out there, and we're putting Class 3, I know, construction waste only for now, a landfill in the middle of that property. And, aside from some of the environmental concerns, I mean, with the Class 1, the gentleman was saying, we would have had to have filled some waterways. My concern, again, is what does this say? Why wouldn't we be looking at, and I know there's few alternatives, but why wouldn't we be looking at a willing participant to put this landfill? Why would we be putting this in the middle? I mean, and another thing that I've never heard addressed, and even with my meeting with the Deseret Ranch folks, because I went to that workshop too, and it wasn't that there was, overwhelming support for this route, it was that there wasn't the majority. By one vote, there wasn't the majority to stop this. And again, what gets lost in this, and like I said, something that I haven't heard is, what does this do to this property value out there? I mean, I know that they probably don't plan on putting up big strip malls and big housing developments next year. This is their property, and we're putting a landfill in the middle of it. And also, too, I know many of you have heard all this already in the executive session, and some of my concerns is that this is the first thing that people are going to see when they drive into Brevard County, is a landfill on 192, in the middle of all of this beautiful property. And again, we took this property. They didn't sell it. They didn't say, oh, please, we have this great land in the middle of our 2 ranches for sale. Please put a landfill here. And we found it so urgent 25 years ago for that site. And I've been hearing, as long as I've lived in Brevard County, that the Sarno landfill's at capacity. And that number, that date keeps moving because we recycle and we're much smarter. And I think, if we're only going to do Class 3 there, then why wouldn't we look at Osceola County? And there was a number that was discussed, and then that number was reduced by 75%. And I just think that we haven't done our due diligence on this. Now, I'm up here because I'm complaining about it, not just because it's in my district, but because I've been to that ranch, and I've been down 192, and I drive into town like many of you probably do, and I see that land out there, and we have environmental issues, and I don't think that I don't think this is the route we should go. We started out by taking this family's land, and that to me is sinful, first off. And why wouldn't we look at a city or another, municipality that is open to those options of having a landfill? Because I know they exist. I could go on for another hour.
Any other comments from the board?
I guess to end, and the reason why I didn't mean to put Mr. Wright on the spot, because they're settling because they're tired of fighting. They're settling because, and this is my perception, it's not me asking them, they're settling because they're afraid they'll lose. The county is probably similar. The county's expended hundreds of thousands of dollars already fighting for this property that they took. And I don't pick on the county. The county's doing their job. They're doing the will of the board over the years, and they're just trying to move forward. But this is really wrong. To see Mr. Wright up here saying he agrees to it, and I could tell he was just defeated. He's defeated. And is this, as a government, is this what we should be doing? I don't think so. Okay, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. Sorry.
Anyone else? I could say a lot. And while I empathize with and sympathize with the position that the Deseret Ranch is in, I look at the purview of the people in this county, because at some point in time, the landfill will be filled that we currently use. If it filled up tomorrow, we have no place to go unless we pay an awful lot of money currently to places like Osceola. Well, in 20 years or 30 years, whatever the case may be, when this landfill that we do have does fill up, we don't know what the landscape is going to look like at that time. We don't know if Osceola will still be in the business of having landfills. So we don't know where we would have to truck this garbage to. So what we're doing for future Brevardians is giving them control of an asset that they may or may never have to use. But the point is, if we do have to use it, we'll have it. If we don't have it, it could cost this county hundreds of millions of dollars, and $100 million was one of the figures thrown around when we were listening to this in executive session. So I don't want to encumber or burden future generations of Brevard residents with that kind of narrow choice. This choice, if we approve this, gives us broad latitude going forward so that the people of this county, and yes, my heart goes out to the Desiree Ranch and the other 4 or 5 families that live out there. This is their property. Their kin have owned this for a long time, and I anticipate 60, 80, 100 years in the future they still will own it. But at some point in time, the purpose of government is to make the decision that is best for everybody. And everybody is going to have a place for their landfill and their garbage to go. And this gives us that latitude. So I'm in favor of this. So, Mr. Barfield?
Just one point. The technology has come so far in the last 20 years for waste energy, different bioremediation methods, a whole lot of other areas. And I truly believe that by the time we get this, I think the technology will be there. I mean, they're so close right now on a lot of things, but it just makes sense. I mean, since man was created, we've buried stuff, and it just doesn't make sense to continue to do that. So that's what my hope is. I'm hoping that we will be in a situation where we will have a cost-effective technological method to dispose of our waste.
Commissioner Isnardi?
And I would agree with that sentiment if we weren't getting started right away with the Class 3. I would say, okay, you know, this is something in the future that we can use in 20 to 30 years when the Sarno landfill is full and we need to put yard waste at the western portion of the entrance to our county. But we're moving it forward. What this does is move us forward with the Class 3. It's like we've started the train and we won't stop it because we've invested all this money fighting this family. And so we're going to do something. If we can't have Class 1 because the commission feels a little uneasy about that and we may lose, we'll go for the Class 3. But you know, once the landfill starts, I mean, I have a hard time believing that we won't try to pursue Class 1 a lot sooner. And if we have the need, we have the right. And then they're back in court fighting us again. We've already damaged their property. We've already started with the landfill process. So, I mean, we're not talking 20 years from now. We're talking 2 to 3.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I appreciate you fighting this fight, Commissioner Isnardi. It's made me stop and think through a little bit more when we do these things, and it should never be a fast decision. They're tough. My perspective, I think Class 3 landfills are going to be the ones that are going to be mined later. I think there's a lot of value that's in them. I think we're going to be mining those items soon, and they're going to be, I think they're going to become pretty valuable items down the road. So my hope would be if we use this now to get mined out later, and you'll end up with your property back as we determine more ways to utilize garbage. Garbage is, we all got it. We're stuck with it. I wish we didn't have it. But I'm thinking in 20 years, the way we are going with technology, that hopefully this will be a good subject maybe in another 5 or 10 years. And I appreciate all the discussions up here, and I really do appreciate your heart on that, Commissioner. Thank you.
Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion that we accept the settlement.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barfield to accept the settlement. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
We have a vote of 3 to 2. It passes. Those opposed, Tabaya and Commissioner Isnardi. Moving on to 5B, Pam LaSalle.
Pamela Salviera. I'd like for the board to not move forward with this RFP. I know at the last meeting it was discussed, and it seemed rather sudden that Mr. Whitten is leaving us, and everyone was complimentary of him, and you even considered enticing him with a pay raise. And an important part of a manager's job is to develop their employees and encourage management employees to move forward and progress their careers. So there's a possibility that there may be someone within our county government who could apply for this position. But even all the same, I would like for you to make a job vacancy announcement to have open to the public as well as county employees, and not hire a consulting firm to, frankly, waste our money on. $30,000 here, $40,000 there, it adds up. And I just don't see the need to hire someone. I was reading through the agenda packet, and this consulting firm will narrow down your choices to 3, that this board will then have a choice of 3 people to decide upon. And I just think it's a waste of our money and just not a wise choice. And it seems illogical to me that you think so highly of a manager who would not develop their own employees. Thank you.
Board comment? Mr. Whitten?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Abate can give you the overview of the item, but in response to not developing our employees, I believe, and I think many of the cities who have participated in our Executive Leadership Institute will attest to our grooming and training and trying to develop our employees to succeed as opportunities present themselves. And so I'm very proud of that 10-plus year program. And so we've made every effort to train our employees to move up within the organization, to get credentialed in Lean Six Sigma and other areas there. So that's one of the legacies that I think I leave.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Isnardi.
I'll be nice this time, I promise. I like the idea of having criteria in the search for a county manager, but I too I'm hesitant to, we're putting out an RFP to put out for a consulting company to find somebody, and if you've ever seen how some of these work, and this is not picking on any firm, or they become a lot like lobbyists. And then what happens, and what my fear is, that we've got this great candidate on paper, he comes in, he gives a stellar interview, there's only one commissioner, and we can gather it'll probably be you that sits in on those interviews that picks us 3, that brings it to us, and the guy's some washout from some little city in Colorado. And that's not what I want. I mean, I would rather us, and it's not your fault, it's just that you don't know some of the dirt because they've been scooped up by a friend of a friend. Do you know what I'm saying? That's my concern, because I've seen it. I mean, I'll just say I've seen it. I would say that we can handle this internally. I mean, I know it's a big job, but I think that we can put out the information. We could use the League of Counties to help us get out the information that we're searching for a manager. But I mean, I'd like to pick somebody at least somewhat in the south or southeastern portion of the United States that's familiar with our terrain and our structure, and that's just my input.
Commissioner Pritchett.
This is kind of a fun subject. We had to do this on the city of Titusville. Our city manager moved to another city, and so we had to go and search for one, and I wasn't real comfortable with the idea of it myself. I liked him at the time, so we used, I think, Colin Benninger. And what he did was he brought us 8 to 10 candidates, and then we went through and we determined what was our favorite, got them down to 5, and then we did a full weekend interview. But what he did is he brought us 8 to 10 highly qualified candidates that were able to do the job. So he kind of did the preliminary work for us, and we gave him marching orders to go out all through the county and bring us the best, the country, and bring us the best ones. And so that's how the process came to us, and I tell you, it really worked. All the people that brought to us, every single one of them would have made great city managers. I said that correctly this time. So I kind of like this. We were provided another search engine with Renee Narlick, and the word I hear on her is she brings in newer candidates than Mr. Collin did, that sometimes he uses the same ones. Not that that's necessarily bad, because all the 9 we didn't pick at the city level would have made great candidates too. So I really like using this method, and then that way I'm sure that we don't have anybody that has, I just think it's a fresh approach. And so I really like doing this. I'm probably going to support Ms. Renee Narlich moving forward to provide us some quality candidates. This is such an important position, and I'm looking forward to having some fresh new ideas come in. Not that I didn't like the old ideas that we had. Mr. Stockton is amazing. So that's my spill on it.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff was pretty helpful looking at what we've paid in the past for some of these search companies. $30,000 once, $34,000. We got a good deal at $24,500. And I know we have more than 25 people in human resources, and I know many of them deal with benefits, but we have a great staff in place that is good at these type of things that we can use for all of their areas of expertise. I went a little bit further and looked into where we would actually put this out. We would want to get as diverse of a pool as available, and I guess the leading magazine in this is Public Management Magazine. There were 150 job listings on there for city, county attorneys, chief administrative officers. On top of that, I looked at fccma.org, which is the Florida Cities and County Management Association. And was it Lee County or Lake County currently has a job opening right now. Lake County has a job opening for a county manager. So I'm not going to be applying for that, but what I'm saying is here, the latter was a free tool, and I think what we should do as a board, my 2 cents would be, let's use the resources we have in-house. Let's use the time that I'm sure this board is willing to put together to screen the applicants ourselves, see if we can find a good candidate, whether it be internally or through one of these mechanisms that will cost very few dollars. And if we're unsuccessful at that point, maybe then look to one of these firms to go out and help us in the search. But if we can do it ourselves with less tax resources, I would much rather advertise on our website, on these websites, and see what we get in return. That would be my 2 cents, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Barfield.
Yeah, I have a good amount of experience with recruiting nationwide, highly technical, professional people, mostly in the medical field, which is different, but it is a lot to recruiting that takes into account your networks a recruiter has, a person who really knows the market and understands how to find the right people in the match. They look with us, they'll talk with us first, they find out what our real match is, what the culture is we need, what type of person, and it gives them a whole other aspect, and they go out and they find these people. The way I would see when they would bring the person to us, they could do individual interviews. Each one of us could do individual interviews. And I think I saw the city of Rockledge do this, where they had separate interviews, and then you would rate the people, and you would cull them down. And then you come up with a final few, and then that's where you make those decisions. The point is, I believe we need to go out with an RFP, a solid RFP. We need to be able to find the very best of the best We don't want to just compete with everyone that's looking for a job. We want to get the best of the best, and that's where our consultant that really knows what they're doing can do that, and they can provide us the best candidates. The other thing to think of this, you talk about the money, we're going to be without a county manager for a good while. And the money that was saved from that actually pays for the recruiting costs to go find someone. So I think you get down the road, and if you don't do this, you're going to be scrambling again, and next thing you know, we'll be a year or more or longer without a county manager. So I'm fully on board that the RFP is the right way to go, and put it out for bids.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. Emotionally, I say, yeah, maybe we should just do it in-house. Commissioner Barfield and myself have hired a lot of people. I've never hired anybody on a nationwide scale. But we know character traits to look for. But on a practical scale, I think we would be much better off hiring a consulting firm for a couple of simple reasons. Because we would be looking, if we hire a company to do the legwork, we're going to be looking at candidates rather than applicants. So instead of looking at 50, 100, 150 applicants, we'll be presented with a number that we can give them. If we want to see 10 people, if we want to see 3 people, if we want to see 5 people, we can give them that direction. And with those numbers, and if none of those 3, 5, or 10, or 15 float our boats, then they can bring us in more. Another important reason I support going with a company to do this is that they give us a guarantee. In other words, if this person that we hire after they make the suggestions and find us candidates, if that person doesn't work out and we're not happy with them, there's no risk to us. We can terminate that person, and they will continue the search at no additional charge to us. So I think that's the prudent way to go. Yes, it's going to cost us some money, but when you're doing something of this magnitude and this importance, I don't think it's money ill spent. Pleasure of the board.
Commissioners, if I could give you a little bit of input on the overview
Absolutely.
of the RFP.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of items that I'd like to address for you, and that is in the agenda request itself. We were looking for the board to give us some direction on a variety of items if the board makes the choice to go with an executive search firm. The first would be we have presented to the board the complete RFP if you want us to be doing anything different. We did have a provision in there that the board and the outline that we've utilized is one we've utilized in the past. If in fact when you decide to, however you decide to move forward, the board can decide who you want on the selection committee for the RFP selection for the vendor, for the executive recruiter. Typically, we've done this one time in the past, that we had 3 people on there, and that's what we recommended to you this time. It was the county attorney or his designee, it was the human resource director, and then an appointment for the board. Now, you could choose to do that and make an appointee, or you could choose a different selection committee if you would like us to do that. We've presented this to you as quickly as we reasonably could so that the board could, if you chose to want to go in this direction, could move forward with it as expeditiously as you could. We'd be prepared to issue this as quick as the end of this week if in fact you chose to do that, and we could pick that firm. The other thing we would need to know is if we have that selection committee, would the board want it? And that would be item number 3, would you want the recommendation from that committee? We've given you 3 choices, or you could give us another one, but the 3 that we presented to you was for you to review the selection committee as a board, a recommendation that that particular committee would present to the board. A second item would be if you want us to go more expeditiously in the search to shorten the time frame as much as we reasonably could, to just authorize the county manager, once that selection committee makes a recommendation, to forego bringing it back to the board and let the county manager execute the agreement under the terms that are contained herein. And the third item would be, which is the broadest for the board, would be to bring back three companies for the board to consider, where you could interview them and then select them. So those are the options if you choose to go forward. There will be a lot of latitude if and when a recruitment firm is selected to what process you want to utilize. They'll come in, they'll help you determine what qualifications you're looking for. If the board decides you only want someone from the southeast and not nationwide, they can make those kind of modifications. You'll all have that opportunity. We've included that as part of how they would have to respond in the RFP. And then, once again, as you've already stated, when you get to the end, this board will be able to provide the direction in terms of how you want that interview process to go, how you want to screen candidates. We did put a provision in there, and I want to highlight it for you as well, that under this process, they would be agreeing that not only would they submit the candidates to you, whatever number you chose to get, but this board, if you wanted to see the complete package of who applied with them, the board could retain that option. And there's a provision that says if a majority of the board wanted to see one candidate that was not submitted by the recruiting company to be added to the list and who you wanted to interview, by a majority vote, the board could add any additional candidates. So you have that flexibility where it's not narrowed necessarily. If the board would so choose, that option is provided in the draft of the RFP that we've presented.
Don't everybody speak at once. Mr. Barfield.
I would suggest I think the criteria is good. Item one's the criteria. And on the second item, I think that's the right way. Have a commissioner, human resource director, and county attorney representative. Now, this is just for making the selection of the vendor. This is the RFP for that. I also would say on the third one, the final selection and determination by the board options is to the board review selection committee's recommendation. I think the entire board should do that prior to the award proposal. That's just my input for this.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Isnardi.
Actually, the last part of what you said was going to be something that I requested as well. I think we should be the ones that ultimately, rather than three people.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion that we put this out for an RFP, put the RFP out with accepting the criteria and waiting. On number two, I agree with that, appointed commissioner, human resource director, and county attorney representative. And then on number three, it would be A, the whole board review of selection committee's recommendation to award proposal.
You got that? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. It passes 3-2. Nay votes are Commissioners Tabaya and Isnardi.
Commissioners, could we get the board to then appoint a commissioner to the selection committee?
Sure.
I move to nominate the chair.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint the chair. We have a second by Commissioner Pritchett and a second by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, moving along to 6E1.
Commissioner, 6C1 is the approval of a resolution for the sale of a 6-acre lot in the county-owned Spaceport Commerce Park in Titusville. The sale would be at a price of $25,000 per acre, and all proceeds from the sale are simply recycled back into the Commerce Park.
Mr. Post? He's good. He's good? You're only here for questions?
Well, I can make a few comments if you'd like, and then we can take for questions. So, okay. Questions?
No questions from the board?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prior to 2013, it looked like the funds went directly to the park, and the ordinance passed in 2013 prior to my time on this. Now it seems as they're funneled through your organization, embeds. Can you help me understand the difference as to what happened prior to 2013 as to what will happen now if we go ahead?
Thank you, Commissioner. What I know about that process, there was a Spaceport Commerce Park Authority that existed. However, when the Embeds Board was created in 2011, of course, its charge was to do economic development within that North Brevard district, and so it seemed appropriate to the Commission at that time to go ahead and assign the duties for marketing and trying to develop the park to the Embeds Board. So that's what we are currently operating under, with the Embeds as the authorized agent of the park for the county.
One brief follow-up. So that commission that you spoke of, or that organization, no longer exists, and you are acting in their stead, is that correct?
I would have to ask legal counsel just to advise, but my understanding is the entity may still exist, but that the Embeds Board acts in essence as also the park authority for the Commerce Park.
Yeah, and actually I think the Spaceport Commerce Park Authority was actually sunset, and those duties transferred to the North Brevard Economic Development Zone.
Any other thoughts from the board? Pleasure of the board?
No cards.
No cards.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett to approve this resolution and a second by Commissioner Isnardi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to 6F1.
Commissioners, this is a resolution seeking support of House Bill 299, which would allow for Brevard County to have representation on the Central Florida Expressway Authority.
No cards.
I make a motion that we accept this resolution.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barfield to accept and a second by Commissioner Isnardi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. 6F2. I'm going to execute executive privilege here and move into 6F3, because this will supersede and save people a lot of breath if we go to 6F3. This resolution, would you like to explain this, Commissioner? Mr. Knox?
It's a resolution that would preclude any creation of new, I'm sorry, we're talking about the other one. We're talking about
F3.
Sorry, yeah. This is a resolution that's fundamentally calculated to allow the county to try to bring the city's and their CRAs to the table to talk about interlocal agreements that might result in the county recouping some of the funds that are being currently spent on CRAs. And there are several different ways that happens. They're all outlined in the resolution.
Okay, and this resolution does call for a proposed workshop, or we can propose a workshop to discuss this. That would be my inclination, because thoughts are all over the board on this subject when it comes to CRAs. Some people absolutely love them. On the other side, some people absolutely hate them. And I'm kind of in the middle. I understand the purpose of a CRA, but I've been saying ever since I got elected, my big problem with CRAs is they never go away. And they can be continued just by the whim of a few people on the CRA. The board has abdicated its authority over CRAs. Even though we're charged with oversight, we don't really have any. I instituted a motion last year that passed that required a template for CRAs to report to us, because without a template, CRAs didn't really know what we were looking for, so each CRA supplied us with facts that they thought were pertinent. It passed, but I don't think it's strong enough, and I don't think it's pertinent enough. So what I'm proposing with this is that we set up a workshop so that going forward, we can have this workshop, the communities can participate, the public can participate, we can participate, and we can create some direction for current and future CRAs. And my primary motive here is to get the county's money back. The county is the bank. The county allows you, the CRA, the community, to create an opportunity to improve a blighted area. Well, too often the blighted area gets fixed, and the bank, the county, never gets paid back. Well, that doesn't work in the real world, and so we need to bring CRAs into the real world in my perspective. So that's my proposal. Commissioner Pritchett.
I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the intent of your resolution. I had a phone call into Mr. Whitten today, and I believe that April the 13th would be a good day to host a workshop on that. I think the CRAs, by the template you put out for them before, preparing those sometime in March, that would give everybody time to come in and do their presentations and maybe have some good conversations.
Okay. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, and I read through your resolution. Thank you. I think it's going in the right direction. My question would be, in the meantime, does your resolution stop cities from creating new CRAs or amending, thus furthering the existence of any of their current CRAs? So those are my two questions.
Well, actually, I had proposed a resolution that would prevent any existing CRA that doesn't have debt to fund debt, but I thought, well, perhaps that might be seen as being a little underhanded, but at the same time, I would encourage any CRAs that have that idea of rushing out and try and encumber themselves so that we can't close them down. I would strongly encourage them not to think that. So to answer your question, no.
Sorry, to both of those, is that correct? The creation of new CRAs as well as
Well, we're going to discuss new CRAs at the public.
I just wanted to make sure that they weren't mutually exclusive.
No. Commissioner Pritchett.
I agree with that. I think we've enjoyed a good partnership with the municipalities and the CRAs, and I think that everybody be honorable moving forward, being able to come to the table and have discussions on these. So I appreciate that. I feel real good about that also.
So do I need a motion for this?
I just want to make a point.
Commissioner Barfield.
April 13th, we have a TPO meeting that morning, so we can just have it after, say, 1 o'clock or whatever. I don't know.
Mr. Whitten, do you have any thoughts on when is a good time to have this?
Well, double check with Sally, but I think the April 13th is an open workshop date. I have it as an open workshop date at 1 p.m.
Okay, so unless I hear any objections, April 13th at 1 o'clock, we're going to workshop the business of CRAs. Do we need a motion for that? Nope, didn't think so. Okay. Done, ordered, and adopted. Okay.
Table it, sir?
I don't, no, we don't. Okay. So all the people that wanted to speak in 6F2, since it's a non-issue now, would you still like to speak? Yes. Okay.
They've done their time.
So, Mike Miller, do you wish to speak? It's 5 minutes, right?
Thank you. I'm Mike Miller. I'm a Cocoa Beach City Commissioner. More than anything else, I'd like to thank the Brevard Commission on behalf of the Brevard County taxpayers for approving the existing 24 CRAs, because I think they're a fantastic investment for the county taxpayers. The CRAs allow jurisdictions to reinvest property tax revenues in a highly effective way. Since they are capital investments and not just expenditures, they produce real dividends for the taxpayers. The CRA funds are invested locally, right here in Brevard County and across the board, from Palm Bay to Titusville, Melbourne, and Cocoa. This money's not going to China, Mexico, or Japan, though individually they stand in their distinct jurisdictions. Collectively, they represent a majority of the taxpayers in Brevard County. CRA investments, the most important thing is they provide incentives for private property owners to invest, and the increased tax revenues accrue to the CRA. Who could ask for a better deal than that? The CRAs in Brevard County increased property taxes over the last 2 years, $1.1 million by what you've provided to us here. That's a return on investment of over 15% per year. Why would we turn that down? I don't know if you've looked at your pension fund or your IRA, Russell, but 15% per year is a great return. And rising tide raises all ships. It's not just property taxes in the CRAs, but this benefits the adjacent areas as well. In summary, I made 4 points. CRAs make capital investments rather than just expenditures, and we get a return on that investment. The CRA funds are invested throughout Brevard County and locally, and all our residents, citizens, and taxpayers benefit from that. The CRAs provide incentives for private investment that we all benefit from, and they performed well, representing a return on investment of over 15% per year over the last 2 years. While I hold public office, I'm not a politician. I've retired as a small business professional, and I've learned one thing in my business experience is don't tamper with business units that are performing. And I believe these CRAs are performing for the behalf of the majority of taxpayers in Brevard County. So I'm asking you to please join me in recognizing the best interest of Brevard County taxpayers by continuing to support community redevelopment agencies as they currently exist. I believe we owe this to our constituents, and thank you for allowing me to speak to this issue tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Courtney Barker? She passes. Mr. Charbonneau?
Richard Charbonneau from the blighted community of Satellite Beach. Excuse me for moving slow. I'm a disabled veteran, something that nobody seems to know about here. I just sent myself an email, and I talked to John and Scott Ellis about CRAs, and I talked to Kurt about CRAs a couple of years ago. And I was actually in favor of continuing the CRAs with the caveat of having some accountability of the CRAs. And there is no accountability. I mean, they claim there is, and you can blink at me all you want. It doesn't change it, what I said. For instance, in Satellite Beach, the blighted community, they used the money to fund the police department and fund the fire department. And Scott Ellis caught them, and they had to pay the money back. Now they're paying us back the money with some screwball idea that Andy Anderson had about paying us back with our own money. I never heard any such a thing, but this is the exact thing that we worry about, is that the CRA can do pretty much anything they want to do with the money, including, give the money to projects to their buddies, but also to run the police department and run the fire department. Had it not been for Scott Ellis, there'd be over $1 million missing. Well, I guess it's still missing, being that we're paying back, or they're paying us back with our own money. But this is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Now, during the the election, I listened to Kurt over and over again say that he had a problem with CRAs. Now he gets on the commission. I'm sorry, Kurt. If you don't like it, you can censor me if you want. But you get on the commission, you hang out with Robin Fisher, and you become Algernon. Algernon was the mouse in Charlie. And, you didn't become smarter just because you were hanging out with Robin Fisher. You just changed your mind. And, you made a promise that you were going to do something. You didn't do it. Now, he's keeping your promise for you. Follow his lead. I got 2 minutes more, so, or actually 3 minutes more. I'll let you all think about it a little bit. Back to the blighted community of Satellite Beach.
John Tidranch.
I'll defer on item F.
Okay. Okay, did you fill out a card for F3 also?
Well, I'm deferring on F.
Okay, you are, okay.
For F2, if that comes back up.
Yeah. Tom Price?
Mr. Chairman and distinguished commissioners, my name is Tom Price. I'm the mayor of the city of Rockledge, and we do have a CRA. We've had it since 2002, and I appreciate the fact that we're going to all sit down and have a workshop. But it seems like every time there's an election, we have to defend our CRAs, and this is not the first time we've been here. So we look forward to the workshop, and I realize it's all about money, guys. This is all about money, but keep in mind that more than half of the residents in Brevard County live in cities. And you represent everybody in Brevard County, not just the county residents. You represent also the residents that live in the cities. And they also pay the same tax rate that your county citizens pay. So we pay a lot of money in per year to Brevard County. What do we get out of it? We get millions of dollars, by the way. We get $600,000 a year to our CRA. But we'll discuss this more in the workshop, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Malik.
Good evening, Commission. Yeah, CRAs were actually one of the reasons I got involved in politics. I've been a banker for over, 30 years. I worked in Sunbank down in Atlantic Avenue in Delray Beach in the late 80s. Not a real nice place in the late 80s. Everywhere had bars on their windows. If I worked late at night, you'd run to the parking lot because it was pretty sketchy. So what happened, the CRA came in. That area has been transformed. I would encourage you, prior to the workshop, take a drive down there one weekend, see what's going on. You will see, and I sent you all case studies, so if you feel bored and you want to look at numbers like I do all day, have at it. It will give you some empirical data to back up what I'm saying. But my point is that the value to the taxpayers extends well beyond the limits, the border limits of the CRA. You've got communities in West Delray Beach that are touting proximity to downtown Delray, being over 10 miles away, and what they were built on was farmland. Sound familiar? Just a bunch of ag land, farm cow pastures. They're now $3 to $15 million custom homes built in those subdivisions. So you can do the math on tax on vacant land versus tax on a $15 million improved residence, and you can see where the benefit is to the county. So I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Barringer.
Greetings, Commission. My name is Matt Barringer. I'm just coming on representing on behalf of myself, but I do have the privilege of serving as the Vice Mayor of Titusville. And simply stated, what caught my attention tonight relative to this specific issue is something that I would hope to share with you in both caution and prudence as you move forward as a Commission. And it's simply the idea of that not too long ago, very fresh in a lot of people's minds in North Brevard, was the sting of a downturn in the economy. It was tough. And as agencies, a multiple agency as government, the school board closed 3 schools. The county reduced park services, helping our children. The city furloughed law enforcement. I think there's a political movement addressing CRAs for the disbandment, specifically really to our economic development agency that existed at the time. And the state's position towards juveniles left little room for rehabilitation that would be considered effective. The reason I say that is that you put those all things together, those are all the agencies that impact the city of Titusville, all responsible for the citizens. I would reciprocate, or I would definitely say that each one of those is an example for any municipality that you'd find, and is also representative of the constituents of which we all serve, and specifically you all throughout Brevard County. The reason I say that is because the process in which we went about trying to find money in order to provide services seemed multiple and compounded beyond the best interests of the community. And because of that, I think that we got some results that we're still dealing with today that went far beyond what was necessary. It was with good intent, all people trying to do and serve the people that they have in a very specific way in which they were elected. But the overall partnership that would allow the service to citizens, I think, left room to be desired. This would be my challenge to this board, is that as you see, because as a municipality, and just speaking as myself, as you move forward, there's some shortcomings. There's a lot of roads to pave. We got to figure that out. And I wouldn't say that that's just a county issue. I think that's all of our and Brevard's issue. So I think that in working with municipalities and moving forward, and both through notification, giving ample time, and allowing plenty of time to be part of the process, both in the discussion of the issue and once you have a workshop, being a part of that is critical. It's almost, I believe, in government, it is as critical as the result you're trying to achieve is the process, if there's anything I've learned about that. So the reason that this caught my attention is because recently the school board, they shrunk some districts, which means what I think is really going to happen is that there's going to be money from North Brevard going south to help Vieira out a bit. And I see maybe trying to dismantle a CRA or change CRAs. I'm going to say there's going to be some money going south a bit. And what I see is this potential, not going to happen, but a potential for this compounding again in which North Brevard is going to fall short. And I just don't want to go there again. So again, the only thing I would ask is that as you move forward, that you mind the process and timing and engagement and support of the community for what you're trying to achieve in working with us. If funding is an issue, I definitely have some alternative ways to help with funding. We currently run Brevard County service within Titusville city limits on fire rescue. I'd be happy to help you out with that. If you'd like to look at transport opportunities, I'd be happy to look at transport, shifting that over to municipality. I'd be happy to look at some of the fire stations that are in proximity to the city of Titusville. I'd be happy to look at that for revenue opportunities. I'd also definitely happy to look at some of the parks that reside within the city. Isaac Campbell, Sandpoint Park, and if the opportunity is there for the cities to step up and take on that role and divest some of those responsibilities from the county, I think that would be a fair ask, and I think it would be in line with what you're trying to achieve. So although CRAs are one component, I appreciate the oversight that you're recommending. I think it's critical to government. It's not our money, it's the taxpayers. But I also think there's some other opportunity as well, and please just keep in mind that there's partnerships with your municipalities, especially with the concept of home rule. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. John, you wish to speak? It has been. It's
Point of order. While I recognize your authority to reorder agenda items, I don't recognize your authority to void them out off of an agenda. So while I clearly voted for your resolution, it was not mutually exclusive about removing mine from the agenda. So if you got that impression, I apologize. I fully would like to bring it up, discuss it, and then vote on it.
tonight or at the workshop?
I put it on the agenda prior to yours being
Okay.
put on the agenda.
Okay,
So
very
yes,
good.
I'd like to vote on it tonight.
Very good. Okay. Well, we're discussing that. Okay, got you. Yes, there are. Okay. Carolyn Willis?
I'm Carolyn Willis, City Commissioner, Cocoa Beach. Our CRA areas have been a very large asset to our community, specifically downtown Cocoa Beach, which makes up most of our CRA. It was voted into existence by our citizens in a referendum. The CRA has helped to fund important projects in our downtown, such as our Minutemen streetscape, which is not only a beautification effort, but a stormwater project which affects the health of our lagoon. This and the CRA grant monies have motivated businesses in our CRA area to improve and beautify their storefronts, which has stimulated business growth and has started a chain reaction in organic growth spreading throughout our downtown area, including more development and beautification. We have proof of the effectiveness of our CRAs quantitatively by the increased growth of our CRA funding throughout the past 3 years. Please do not take this away from us, especially since Cocoa Beach does collect a large portion of the sales tax that does go back to Brevard County. And on behalf of Cocoa Beach, thank you for your time and consideration of our concerns, and we look forward to the workshop to discuss this further.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to 6F2. Mr. Tobias, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I discuss this resolution, I want to thank all of the various members from the CRAs that came up and discussed their issue and have been getting in contact with my office about various budgets. And I have not received them all, and I have clearly not had the time to do the research that the diligence is deserved to not only you, but to the taxpayers that we both represent. So I'd like to talk about what this resolution does not do before I talk about what the resolution does do. The first thing this resolution does not do is impact any of the current CRAs. If you are a CRA in existence right now, this will have zero impact on you. Let me tell you what else this does. This does not preclude any new CRAs from forming. Let me tell you the one simple thing that this resolution does. This resolution requires that new CRAs that are created enter into an interlocal agreement with the Board of County Commissioners before they receive any county funds. So before anyone comes up and speaks on it, this stuff was pretty complicated, full of legal jargon, as well as a bunch of state statutes, and County Attorney Knox was very helpful drafting it. I just want to be very clear that this, if passed tonight, will have zero impact on any CRAs that are currently in existence. That's the resolution, Mr. Chair.
Comments from the board? Commissioner Zanardi.
I didn't realize until I saw this addition to the agenda that we weren't required to have interlocal agreement first before they could create. That was really shocking to me. That wasn't, assumed. So I'll be supporting this. Because it doesn't hurt anything, it doesn't change the workshop, and this is something that should have been in place when they started taking CRA applications.
Any other comments? Mr. Tobias, would you like to make a motion?
Do you have cards?
No cards.
Yeah.
Oh, John, I'm sorry, John. Glad somebody's paying attention up here.
I want to thank you for that clarification, Commissioner Tobias, but I still have a couple questions, and I want to go first. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening. And while I certainly have thoughts and opinions regarding the efficacies of CRAs in general, clearly this evening's not probably the time to discuss whether or not they're meritorious or they serve a legitimate public purpose. I think that's a discussion that can be had at the workshop, but I am concerned about the resolution. And while I hear what you're saying, I guess I look to the language of the resolution, and it concerns not just me, but the city. Appearances can be sometimes deceiving, and we hope that any lack of clarification or confusion on our part may be clarified tonight with regard to the intent of the resolution, or maybe offered up some additional language that provides greater security or assurances to the CRAs. Toward that end, Section 2 of the resolution provides that effective on the date of the adoption of this resolution, the County Commission hereby rescinds and revokes any and all delegation of authority by the County Commission to municipal governing body or municipality in the county vesting that municipality with the authority to create a new redevelopment agency. Well, the County Commission already has that authority. You have that authority. If a municipality wants to come before you to create a CRA, you have to grant that authority. So the purpose of the resolution, I'm not certain, is I don't think there's zero impact. I'm concerned that there's not zero impact. Because you have that authority to say no, you have that authority to say yes, but we want to impose an ILA, of which I would add, Commissioner Zanardi, that all the proposed resolutions that grant that authority establishes powers, confer powers to both the CRA and then reserve and confer powers to the county. So there is some sort of an agreement there prior to the formation. The proposed resolution declares, rescinds, and revokes any and all delegation of authority by the County Commission. And while it seems to address new CRAs, Section 2 indicates that the county is proposing to rescind and revoke the authority for prior delegations of authority granted. Why would you need to rescind and revoke that authority if you're only concerned about new CRAs? Because you're not granting that authority. So when you're proposing to rescind and revoke prior delegations of authority, it gives great cause, because if the resolution's adopted, one, I think it would be inconsistent with the existing resolutions that most CRAs have through the delegated powers in terms of the provisions of how they can be, either you take them over, the county can assume control of them, or they are, you revoke the powers. And that's what this resolution is doing. It's stating you're rescinding and revoking any and all delegation of authority by the County Commission. So that's where the clarification, I think, and I don't think the intent is prospective, and it leaves open to be construed that the intention is to rescind and revoke all delegation of authorities, and it would seem to be inconsistent not just with the title of the resolution, but also, as I mentioned earlier, these resolutions that the county previously granted the authority to create a new CRA. If the delegation of the authority the county previously granted to create new CRA is the basis for a CRA's existence, and that delegated power is rescinded and revoked, what happens to those CRAs that were given that power? Do they effectively cease to exist? Because the resolution says you're going to rescind and revoke all delegation of powers. Only the existing CRAs that were provided the power through the county have that delegation, or that power, were granted it. So I would just, in the interest of transparency, ask that that be clarified. I'm really encouraged to hear that you want to do a workshop. I please workshop this before you pass this resolution. I think it's a critically important public policy matter, and your leadership in bringing the county and the CRAs together in a collaborative manner is important. The societal and public costs and consequences may be far more severe if the Commission were to effectively eliminate CRAs by the passage of what I potentially, maybe I'm wrong, but by the passage of this resolution. We've met several times, 2015, 2012, 2010, 2008. I mean, we can come. We can give you the information. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. You took the time to actually come to our community, visit and see our areas, and we extend it to everybody. We'll invite everybody. We've already reached out to you, to Commissioner Tobias. I'm just concerned the way the resolution reads right now. There's no need to rescind and revoke powers because you already retain the power to prevent any future CRA being created. And I think the way, as a former legislator yourself, you know that the power, the way that's written, if it's adopted, we're concerned about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Tobias has made a motion to approve his resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Pritchett.
I'm going to make a plea again, Commissioner Tobias, that you might consider tabling this after the workshop. It's not a bad proposal of going into an interlocal agreement. I'm not so sure that I have a concern with that, but I would just feel more comfortable if we could really vet this real well before we move forward. Sir.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Isnardi.
And I also want to echo that only because I'm concerned if the language is contradictory, and I'm not trying to pick on our county attorney, but I assumed that this was kosher the way it was, and I was told that we did not have that authority. So again, I want some clarity on this. I don't think that there's a big rush. If they have to come before us anyway, we just simply say no. I mean, we can make a policy right now or make a commitment as a board to say no more CRAs because we have a workshop around the corner. So, I mean, I don't think anything's going to, I don't think there's a CRA out there in the shadows trying to come in.
Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, and I agree with the same thing. I think this is a workshop item. Anything right now dealing with CRAs, we want to make sure we do it right, and I'd just like to defer this to the workshop.
Mr. Tobias, any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was very specific in my intent on this resolution, and not being a attorney or even pretending to be one, I turned to county staff, and I appreciate many of the issues that are brought up, and I would love to discuss them, but absent of a law degree, I don't think I would be all that much of a help. So I would like to give our county attorney the ability to speak to those directly and find out if, in fact, what you spoke about is correct, because if it is, that was 100% not my intent. I think that we may have a difference of opinion, but I think we should come in as transparent, as honest as possible, and what you were trying to convey was not my intent at all. So I would like to, I was very clear when I spoke with Mr. Knox that exactly as I, transferred when I when I brought it up. So I'd like to turn it over and get, the person that drafted this' opinion as to whether or not, the certain merits of your argument.
Mr. Tobias, could I make a suggestion here? Since you clearly will not get a second to this, and I would encourage you to continue that conversation with Mr. Knox, and if you wish to do it right now, we can, but I would encourage you to consider that it's not going anywhere tonight, and we can discuss this more fully at the workshop, and you'll have plenty of time to discuss it with Mr. Knox tonight, tomorrow, whenever. Your thoughts?
Again, Mr. Knox, will you please comment to the drafting of this and whether or not the intent was correct or there was a drafting issue?
All right. Well, first of all, the County Commission has delegated authority to the City of Cocoa and various other cities by resolution passed years ago. And they were over a period of time. So the issue is whether or not you can recapture any of that authority. This resolution is designed to recapture the authority to create new CRAs. That's all it's intended to do. Language you could actually eliminate paragraph 2 if you need to make it do that, but that's what the language is supposed to do.
So, Mr. Tobias, you've made a motion.
I don't know, John, I believe, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. Cannon. I would make I don't know, I would expect to get your support or anyone else on this board, but I do appreciate the recommendation you brought forward, and I would make a motion to go forward with resolution minus section 2 as the issues that you brought up, and I think that would solve many of the concerns that you had with the drafting of that by taking that completely off the table. So my motion is to move forward with the resolution minus section 2 to preclude new CRAs from being created.
Okay. Okay, we have that motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Commissioner Isnardi?
I hate to keep dragging this on, I apologize, but don't we already have this authority? That's what I'm not sure. If we remove paragraph 2.
I believe we do.
The authority to do what? Prevent the creation of a new one?
Right.
No. You delegated that authority by resolution, not you personally,
Yeah.
not this commission, but other commissions have done that.
Okay. But new ones, or that, are you talking about, I thought new ones they had to, this is why we need a workshop.
They have delegated all authority over any creation of any CRAs provided for in Chapter 3, Part 3 of Chapter 163 Florida statutes.
So the county commission has delegated all authority to the municipality if they
Right.
want to start one,
Right.
and we have no say.
Right.
That's what.
Well, you don't have you have the ability to pull that back if you need to, which is what this is about. But right now, all that power that exists in Chapter 163 to create, expand, fund CRAs has all been given to the cities.
Okay.
Could I get input from that gentleman one more time? Is that all right if I ask that?
Is he an attorney? I respect his expertise, but.
I think that this points out the fact that we need more information, we need more input, and so failing a second, the motion fails. Okay, public comments. Mr. Passley.
Dave Passley, Melbourne Beach, Florida. Commissioners, thank you for having the opportunity to speak with you. I wasn't really going to talk about CRAs because I've already met with about everyone on the board expressing my opinion, but I would like to see a copy of this template because that was my suggestion, that we have a template so we could get some consistency in the way these things report. One of the things I'd like to see in this template, by the way, I really didn't mean to take time talking about this, but I'd like to see something that says this is why we were created and this is what we spent money on. What it is right now, I'm hearing people talking about flower pots and park benches and street lights. Ain't got a damn thing to do with the CRAs, okay? So enough about that. What I really want to talk to you about is we're in the budgeting cycle, and again, we are looking for input from the commission for budget objectives and what we want to accomplish. One of the things, my background, we always start off with a list of assumptions. One of the assumptions that we need is assuming there's going to be $6 million available for roads. There are a list of whole thing. I mean, priorities and objectives, they all need to be down on paper so the budgeting process can look at what the commission really wants. What are our objectives? What are our initiatives? And going forward. So that's the basis of what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, and be more than happy to work with anybody as far as putting that process together. It's not that hard. It's just a matter of getting priorities and getting everyone to agree that roads are one of our top priorities and not spending it on other things. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last card of the evening.
By the way, where can I get a copy of this template that we keep talking about?
We don't really have one. That's what we're going to do. It's high on our list. Margaret Coling.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for this time. I recently received information that there is a proposal for a liquid natural gas transfer facility near the Melbourne Airport. And the understanding was that gas would be offloaded to railroad cars and run on the railroads in this county. I'm not sure if this information is correct, but I'm very concerned about it. I do live within 2-mile radius of Melbourne Airport and also very near the railroad, like a few blocks. And my question and my concerns are that I understand this is dangerous, that they've had accidents where these have exploded, both the facilities and the railroad cars in other areas. And I was just wondering what this would give our county. What quality would this bring to our life? And also concerned about the dangers of this. And I was not sure if you were aware of this. My understanding is that the only reason that this has not been accepted and gone forward on is concerns by Melbourne Airport itself. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention and, what our concerns are as, we have to live there and what it would do to our neighborhoods. And the railroad runs through a lot of neighborhoods, not just mine. Okay, so thank you so much for your attention and listening to me. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you. Okay, moving into public comments. Public comments, we already did that. Sorry. Moving into board reports. Mr. Whitten.
Yes, Commissioners, two things on this template. I don't quite understand. I know the board talked about it, and I think we're currently working on something. CRAs are required to submit annual audit reports, comprehensive annual financial reports, and there is an annual budget, and there is an annual report that's required by Florida Statute 163.356, Section 3C, and that requires agencies that are special districts to submit to the governing bodies on or before March 31st of each year a report of its activities for the preceding year which report has to include a complete financial statement setting forth its assets, liabilities, income, and operating expenses as of the end of the fiscal year. And so I'm assuming it's a modification of that report that's required in statute. And when you look at those reports, they're going to be somewhat different for each of the CRAs, but they are at a minimum require those things that are in statute, among which are their operating expenses. And so we can play with the template of the report, but again, CRAs are already statutorily required to submit those reports, and so just never was clear on what, in addition to those statutory things, would be required of the report. Most of them, and we're comparing all of them, most of them list their projects and their progress, their expenditures, their board members, et cetera. And so, it is, I assume, just a matter of taking the best of the best. When you all had this discussion, there was some thought that the City of Palm Bay's was a fairly decent template, but again, the City of Palm Bay's looks pretty similar to the City of Coco's, pretty similar to all other cities there. But by the time you get to the workshop, we will have a composite of all of those things that will probably look like the report that currently exists, but we'll provide that to the board. Commissioners, on the second item, I think March the 9th is an open workshop date, and so if you want to talk about budget and want to actually begin to look at, provide staff with some direction with regards to the fiscal year 17-18 budget, I would ask that you all accept that open workshop as a budget workshop.
Does anybody have any problems with that date that you know of? I have no idea whether I have problems or not. I don't have my cell phone here.
It's the day of TPO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that would work. Okay. Mr. Knox.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I know each of you has expressed some interest in the charter cap litigation, which is pending between the county and the firefighters. And the hearing for that particular item is going to be held on April 6th in front of Judge Rainwater at 3 p.m. Because I know some of you have been asking about that timing.
April 6th?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, I know you've probably seen in the newspaper, and maybe y'all have got emails concerning Port Canaveral's Jetty Park. There's some misinformation out there that supposedly we are trying to sell the 9.6 acres immediately south of Jetty Park, which we lease to the Port Canaveral, that we were trying to sell that to developers. That's not true at all. And what I'd like to do is get Bonetta to give a little bit of background and history on what has transpired there back over the years.
Yeah, the lease was due to expire December 31st, 2015, and we had been in negotiations with the port for 2 years prior, and in those negotiations there appeared to be some common interest that the port would no longer lease the property but purchase the property. And what prompted these discussions was that we were going to needed to locate an 800 megahertz communication tower. And we could have located on the property that we owned and leased to the port, but that wasn't a desirable location for them because it would have placed it right in the area of one of their resorts in the campground. So that's what started the negotiation of us perhaps putting the tower somewhere else on port property and them perhaps purchasing the 9.6 acres that they had leased for many, many years. They have already put infrastructure on that property. There's a parking lot, there's a roadway, there's a retention pond. So there was a common interest in that occurring. We did surveys to relocate the tower elsewhere on port property. We did an appraisal of the 10 acres. They did an appraisal. Their appraisal came in at 1.6. Our appraisal came in at 2.4. So we were negotiating perhaps something in the middle, and staff was sort of in agreement with that approach, knowing that they would take it to their board and we would take it to our board for direction. There was also discussion of perhaps a lease purchase, extending that payment perhaps over 10 years with whatever price we agreed on. So that's really where we were up until December, roughly, I think it was December. And then they took an item to their board and sort of presented a whole different approach than what we had discussed for the 2 years prior, and wrote a letter to us saying that they would not enter a lease for anything more really than the $1 per year. Was it 14? Yeah, maybe, well, I'm sorry, it was 14. The lease was due to expire in 15. Thank you.
And just to explain the time frame of all that, that's when the port changed out the CEO, and then also they went through new port commissioners as we went through new county commissioners. So at some point, we're going to have to bring this before the county commission again and decide what we're going to do with that property. Do we go back and lease it at $1 a year like it's been, or are we going to try to sell it, or are we going to come somewhere in between, sell it to the port, and come somewhere in between there? So that will be coming up, whenever we can get that together, but that'll be coming before the board. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you for trying to save me the embarrassment for not getting a second. I spent 8 years in the legislature losing. Did a good job at losing, but I stood on my principles of less government and a conservative philosophy. And I made a bunch of promises when I ran for this office. It's very difficult when you've held office and you're asking people to trust you again because you're a politician. And I said I would do the best that I could to make sure that we covered the needed infrastructure in Brevard County. People didn't say, John, well, if you don't have 3, then it's okay if you drop the issue. I made a promise, and I'm going to stick to it, cognizant that opinions change, members change, but principles don't. And again, I thank you for giving me that opportunity, but I think it was very, very important that we did not allow any new CRAs to be created between now and this workshop that may come here in the future, regardless of what the outcome is, because right now it's free game, and this is a call out to all the cities. Create the CRAs. You are free to not only do that, but to take the resources that would otherwise be going to infrastructure. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate the fatherly help there, but principles will always win over. Thank you.
Commissioner Znardi.
Just in response to that, as a commissioner up here that would have normally seconded something like that, I mean, I didn't feel comfortable because I didn't think the document was legally sound. If I could ask our county attorney to clean it up, lose that paragraph, make sure that it's sound, I would have no problem supporting this or even bringing it back myself. But the workshop, I think, is going to handle most of these issues. I hesitate to make new laws without making sure that we can litigate them, without making sure that we are sound. So, I mean, I'm okay if the commission desires to bring this up. If these municipalities are allowed to arbitrarily create CRAs, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and I may even consult somebody else I know that's kind of an expert, another attorney on CRAs, because I think that there's some misunderstanding with this, but anyhow, I'll leave it at that. My only business is, and this is sort of completely unrelated, is that I would just ask this board and staff, and I'm sure it's not intentional, I have never gotten so many revisions of an agenda in my entire life, and I feel bad for Sally, because most of these revisions aside from the CRA things that both Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Tobias put on there, can wait till the next meeting. I mean, I know board appointments are important, I know, but it's a little ridiculous when you have to wait to the last possible moment to even save the meeting on your little pad here because there's so many additions to the meeting. I think it makes more work for her, and I think some of this stuff can wait. I think it's just courtesy, and I think we need to just chill out a little bit when it comes to the additions that aren't urgent. Because I know there will be changes, but most of this stuff isn't urgent.
Commissioner. Mr. Whitten?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, recall that you all, by consensus, gave me the direction to tighten up your operating policies, and I will be working on those.
I knew that. Commissioner Pritchett.
I just have a community announcement. A week from this Thursday, February the 16th, from noon to 5, at New Life Christian Fellowship in Titusville, they're going to have 20 pallets of food brought in to give away. So if you need some help with food, your week lasts a little bit longer than your paycheck, or if you know someone, come on out. There's going to be plenty of food, probably to feed half of the county. So I just want to make that announcement.
And my report is that, have all of you heard of St. Baldrick's? Well, yours truly has volunteered to get his hair cut off. So, cough up some money, make it worth my while, so that we can raise money for these kids. And that's it. So this meeting is adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.